Okay, hi there. My name's Josh. I'm an administrator within Student Services at UWL, and I'm with my colleague James. So today we'll be taking you through how to apply for hardship funding. During this presentation, we'll be aiming to help you understand how the university's own hardship fund, the Discretionary Support Fund, works, how to make a good application, as well as other options if you're ineligible for the fund. I'll now pass you on to James, who will be able to run us through what the DSF is.
Thanks, Josh. The Discretionary Support Fund, or the DSF for short, is the university's main hardship fund, providing discretionary financial assistance to help students remain at university if they're facing financial difficulties. The DSF is designed to help alleviate unexpected financial hardship. It's intended to act as a safety net for students in financial difficulty, but it shouldn't be considered as a main source of income. All applications are subject to a financial assessment, and all awards are made at the discretion of a panel. The awards are grants, so they're not loans, and you don't have to pay them back. The amount of the award is decided on a case-by-case basis by the panel. It is worth bearing in mind that the fund is limited, and we may not be able to meet your need in full or guarantee that funds will always be available.
Great. So before you get into the nitty-gritty of applying, you want to check if you're eligible for the DSF fund. We'll get into the specific criteria in the next slides. So if you aren't eligible, feel free to skip to about halfway through this presentation, where we'll be going through other internal and external hardship funding options that may be available to you. Okay, so this table shows us reasons why we may or may not be eligible. It's not an exhaustive list, but these are the main eligibility criteria. So to be eligible, you need to be paying home fees. So if you're full-time, that's about £9,250. If you are part-time, I think it's something like 6,100. You need to have applied for all available external funding. So that's your full maintenance loan from the Student Loans Company. And if you're an NHS student, you're expected to have applied for the NHS Learning Support Fund. You need to be fully enrolled on a course at UWL. If you're a full-time student, you need to be taking modules worth at least 120 credits. And if you're part-time, that needs to be at least 60 credits a year. So you're not eligible if you're paying EU or international fees. If you're on a degree apprenticeship, or if you're a nursing associate, unfortunately you're not eligible. Students studying at UWL partner institutions, I think there's a few exceptions. So if you're at Drama Studio London, or if you're studying on a course at Screen Space, you are eligible for it. But if you're from any other partner institution, unfortunately you are not eligible for the DSF. Students who are not paying tuition fees for the academic year, or if you're access only, so that means if you've got an extension, you won't be eligible, unfortunately. You have to be paying your tuition fee yourself. Postgraduate students, if you haven't applied for the SLC postgraduate loan or a professional development loan, you also will not be eligible. Great, so as we saw on the previous slide, unfortunately EU and international students are not eligible for the UWL DSF. All EU international students are expected to have provided adequate funding for your studies, both for your tuition fees and living costs. However, if you do find yourself in either the EU or international student category, there are other options open to you, which we'll elaborate on later. But one option is to get in touch with the student advice team. All their details are on this slide. They can advise you on other funding that may be available to you, as well as, in exceptional circumstances, provide small amounts of emergency funding. This is for situations where you can't pay for basic things like groceries. Their email address and phone number are provided here, but the best way to get in touch is by booking a quick query appointment via the Student Hub at studenthub.uwl.ac.uk. The website's there. You can choose between a phone call, Teams video call, or an on-campus face-to-face appointment.
So what is financial hardship? Well, the term typically refers to one of two situations. Either when your monthly costs are more than your monthly income due to circumstances beyond your control, for example, if you've lost your job or you have unexpected costs, or when you cannot keep up with your bills and any debt payments. The DSF is provided for students who have made adequate financial provision to support their study and living costs, but who have found themselves in an unexpected and significant short-term situation outside their control, which has left them in hardship and led them to seek financial assistance. If you're applying for the DSF, you'll have to show that your current financial difficulties were caused by a significant unpredictable circumstance, and you'll need to demonstrate genuine hardship by providing evidence of how your financial situation has changed and how it couldn't have been predicted at the start of your course. So what counts as an unforeseen circumstance? Well, what we consider foreseeable are things like starting your course with pre-existing debts or arrears, not paying your standard bills and incurring late fees, or sending money to your family or abroad. Your student loan money is meant to support you and your studies. But if you live with your parents, then rent and food contributions are fine. Examples of unforeseen circumstances are things like losing your job or having a significant decrease in earnings, for example if you're put on furlough, higher bills if you have to spend more time at home, or having to pay more rent, for example if you have to pay a higher share after your housemate moves out, if you have to move to a more expensive accommodation, or if you find yourself having to pay rent for more than one property. When applying for the DSF, you'll need to provide evidence that you've applied for all other funding available to you, namely your full maintenance loan from the Student Loans Company, and if you're studying on an eligible course like nursing, the training grant from the NHS Learning Support Fund. You may also be eligible for state benefits through Universal Credit. You'll also need to consider how you'll provide for yourself financially if your application is unsuccessful. Unfortunately, applying for the fund doesn't automatically entitle you to it, and it's always worth having a backup plan.
Okay, so this next slide outlines for us why the timing of an application is key. Generally speaking, if you apply in your first year, especially the first semester of your first year, you're unlikely to be successful, as you're expected to have made financial provisions for at least your first year. If you are in your first year and you've been put into financial hardship due to no fault of your own, then please still do apply. It's also important that you don't leave it too late to apply. The DSF application process can take up to 4 weeks, not including the time you need to gather all your evidence and complete the form. If you apply when you're down to your last few pennies, then you're also putting yourself in a pretty precarious position, as applying for the fund does not guarantee any payment will be made to you. You'll always want a plan B in case your application is unsuccessful. Okay, so if you're an EU or international fee paying student, you may wish to look at the following options for funding. If these slides are made available on the Student Hub, then you'll be able to click on the links for more information. But if not, a quick Google search should get you the information you need. So we've got churches together. The Ctbi Hardship Fund, as it's called, is similar to the DSF. It assists full-time international students who are already in Britain and Ireland and who are facing unexpected financial problems during the final stages of their course. If you're looking for a laptop, the UWL IT department runs schemes periodically where you can get a laptop and pay it off in interest-free installments. Keep an eye on the announcements email in your student email inbox. The International Students House runs its own hardship fund called the Mary Trevolian Fund. Apologies if I mispronounced that. It's a hardship fund available to students in London who have found themselves in unexpected financial difficulties during their studies. The Best Way Foundation, that gives grants to students from India, Pakistan, Bangladesh and Sri Lanka on a one-off or recurrent basis according to needs. Again, if I pronounce this wrong, apologies, but the Amiobi Hardship Fund seeks to assist current international students whose funding has suddenly ceased due to circumstances beyond their control. And then finally, there are various scholarships and bursaries offered to students by the University of West London. For international students, you'll want to take a look at the International Ambassador Scholarship, while home and EU fee-paying students will want to check out the UWL Full-Time Undergraduate Bursary or the Path to Success Scholarship. All of these, along with a number of philanthropic scholarships, are listed on our website. You can find that at uwl.ac.uk/scholarships. And I'll pass you back to James for the next section.
So what makes a good application to the Discretionary Support Fund? Well, there are two parts to the application: the application form itself and the supporting evidence. The application form asks questions about your current income and expenditure and requires you to write a supporting statement explaining your financial situation. You should be as detailed as possible in your answers. It's important to explain why you require financial assistance and that you include all the information that you feel may support your case. You will also need to complete a table showing your income and expenditure over the full year. This section should include all the money you receive from your student funding, benefits and employment, as well as all of your annual living costs to demonstrate that you have a shortfall in your finances, meaning more money going out than coming in. Try to give your figures as accurately as possible, even if you have to estimate. Let's take a look at an example. This is a student who's made realistic provision to support themselves for the year. They have a maintenance loan, they get the university's full-time undergraduate bursary, they receive some benefits from universal credit, and they have wages from a part-time job, giving them a total income of around £16,000 for the year. For their expenditures, they've included their rent, they're paying a share of the council tax, and they've estimated that they spend about £100 a month on bills and £50 a week on groceries. They've included their phone bill, they have fairly high travel costs to the university, and some course-related costs for things like books and equipment. That all comes to an annual expenditure of just over £14,000, so they're not in hardship as they have more money coming in than going out. That, at least, was the plan. Unfortunately, halfway through the year, the student loses their job and can't find another one. If everything else stays the same, with their income significantly reduced, they have a clear shortfall in their finances and have now found themselves in hardship.
Okay, here we go. Evidence. So over the next few slides, I'll take you through the evidence you need to supply to make a good application. It's really important that you provide all the relevant evidence that you have been asked to supply to give you the best chance of having a successful application. If you are in genuine hardship, we really want to do whatever we can to help you out, but you have to provide all the evidence we've asked for. Make sure you read through the guidance notes properly. You'll need to do a lot of printing and searching through old paperwork, but it is doable and well worth the time and effort. A good application with all the right evidence is always easier for us to award than a hastily put together form with big chunks of evidence missing. Okay, so we got so you need to include 3 months of bank statements for all your accounts. So if you do have accounts missing, and we can see that there's like transfers to other accounts, that we'll know if something's missing. So make sure you include all your accounts. You'll also want to put a full written explanation of all transactions over £100. You can either do that as a separate document and just refer to the date of the transaction, and you can write out why you made that transaction, or you can sort of print it out and annotate the slides, annotate the PDFs, whatever works for you. But yeah, make sure you include those explanations. You'll also want to include your tenancy or mortgage agreement. So if you're living at home, a signed letter from your parent confirming your contribution to household costs will be fine. You'll need 3 months of pay slips if you and or your partner are in work. You'll need evidence of all your funding. So if you get a student loan, we need to see that. If you've got NHS Learning Support Fund, we'll need to see that as well. Okay, so a bit more evidence here. You'll need to provide evidence of any benefits you get. So if you get universal credit or housing benefit or anything like that, job seekers, you'll need to provide evidence of that. There's usually a letter that can be sent. If not, you can request one. If you have dependent children, we'll need to see your child's birth certificates and confirmation of any like nursery costs and child tax credits or maintenance payments, anything like that. We'll need to see evidence of it. Evidence of any course-related costs as well are useful. So if you've got receipts of like books and equipment, stuff like that, if they're more than £5 a week or £260 annually. You should also provide any additional evidence that you think would be helpful to demonstrate your financial hardship. So that's household bills, proof of rent arrears, debts, etc.
At this stage, you're probably asking why we need all of this evidence. Well, we require all the evidence to carry out a full financial assessment and make sure that our support is targeted to our students who need it most. Now, if you don't submit everything with your application form, we will only email you once to ask for any missing evidence or for any further information. If you don't provide the evidence by the deadline given, the committee will assess your application based on the information available as it stands. But if the committee don't feel you've provided enough evidence to make a full informed decision or to adequately demonstrate your hardship, then they reserve the right not to make an award. So it really is in your interest to provide as much evidence as possible. When you're providing your evidence, here are some of the main do's and don'ts. Do provide 3-month statements for all bank accounts that you hold. That's all current accounts, savings accounts, and ISAs. Some people just have one bank account, some people have 6. But however many you have, you need to submit 3 months of statements for all of them. Do make sure your statements are clear, that they have your name on them, and they show the dates of each transaction. The easiest way of providing these is to download your statements as PDFs from your bank's website. Please don't send screenshots of statements if you view them on your phone, as they often cut off some parts or don't show all the information. And please don't send your statements copied into Excel spreadsheets, because we do need to see the official documents. Not everyone has access to a scanner, so you can send photos of your evidence, but please make sure that they show the whole page and that your photos aren't blurry. With your bank statements, you do need to include a full explanation of all transactions over £100 for all of your accounts. You can either write those on your statements or provide them on a separate page. When you're sending your bank statements, make sure they cover the full 3 months and aren't missing out any periods of time. Please try not to send them out of order. If you send them in the right order, it means we can process your application a lot faster. Please do send your most recent letters and documents for things like rent statements or benefits, and do include all of the pages. Do make sure that your student loan or funding letter is for the current academic year and includes the full breakdown of your award and the payment timetable for the year. And lastly, don't forget to send all of the required evidence that applies to you. We'll be able to tell if you haven't included everything, particularly evidence of other income or bank accounts. I know that might sound like a lot, but the more evidence you provide to demonstrate your situation, the more likely you are to come out with an award.
Okay, so once you've completed your application form and all necessary evidence has been submitted to dsf@uwl.ac.uk, the DSF administration team will present your application to the DSF panel. Now, the DSF panel is a separate body to the admin team, and it's made up of a number of senior staff members who meet regularly to discuss applications and make decisions on whether an application is successful. And if an application is successful, they'll also decide what funding that student receives. This process can take up to 4 weeks, so please be patient. Once a decision is made by the DSF panel, you'll be sent a letter via email informing you of your outcome. If while waiting for your DSF outcome your situation becomes urgent, then please contact our student advice team. If appropriate, they may be able to release small amounts of emergency funding to you. All their contact details can be found on this slide here, so please note those down. Right, well, thanks for listening. I hope this presentation was helpful and informative. If you have any more questions, please feel free to email the DSF team at dsf@uwl.ac.uk, and they will endeavour to assist you as best they can. Thank you very much.